I love that because I made the decision back at 26 years old to see if I had what it took to be an entrepreneur, that today at 49, which is crazy to me, I can recount more good days than I can recount bad days, and more lives changed than I think I ever would have changed if I kept being at a company that serviced and sold credit cards. Like, like I'm actually doing work that changes lives.
Welcome to Mitlin Money Mindset, your weekly dose of inspiration and insights to ensure you enjoy each step of your journey. Whether you're saving for the future, planning your next big adventure, or simply looking to add more joy to your life, you've come to the right place. Now, let's dive in.
I'm Larry Sprung, your host for the Mitlin Money Mindset and founder and wealth advisor of Mitlin Financial. Today, we're joined by a powerhouse in the world of business transformation and personal growth, Dr. Darnyelle Jervey Harmon, CEO of Incredible One Enterprises. Darnyelle is a business strategist, award-winning speaker, and best-selling author whose mission is to help entrepreneurs build businesses that are not only profitable, but also purpose-driven. Through her company, Incredible One Enterprises, she empowers six-figure entrepreneurs to scale their businesses to seven figures and beyond, while reclaiming their time and aligning their efforts with their personal and professional values. Her expertise spans everything from business strategy and leadership development to mindset mastery, and her work has earned her recognition as one of the top voices in the industry. Darnyelle is passionate about helping leaders create lives of significance while achieving sustainable success. Today, we'll dive into Darnyelle's journey, her insights on scaling businesses with integrity, and how she's changing lives through her transformational programs. Get ready for an inspiring and actionable conversation with Dr. Darnyelle Jervey Harmon. Well, I am super excited today to have Dr. Darnyelle Jervey Harmon with us today, the CEO of Incredible One Enterprises. Welcome to the show, Darnyelle.
Thank you so much for having me, Lawrence. I'm so excited to be here. I've been looking forward to this conversation.
As have I. So, one of the things that I I found our listeners find very intriguing is the entrepreneurial journey, because I think many people have some similarities and many people have a lot of differences. So, just we'll spend a lot of time on what you're doing today with Incredible One Enterprises, et cetera. But before we get to that point, can you give our listeners an idea of, who you are, what led you up to the point of being the CEO?
Absolutely. So, whenever I'm asked to introduce myself, I always start by saying I am first and foremost a God girl. I think I'm God's favorite daughter. Um, I believe that businesses that have a spiritual foundation go farther faster. In addition to that, I am a brilliant businesswoman. I have had a career that started in corporate America in a Fortune 500 company, where in 3 years I went from entry level 217 representative to vice president running my own department. I woke up one day and said, I think there's got to be a little bit more to life than this. So I walked into my boss's office in 2004 and quit my job. And I spent 2.5 years in Mary Kay Cosmetics. Yes, selling lipstick, but I got the pink Cadillac. I actually earned two pink Cadillacs in my tenure with Mary Kay. And then I woke up again and said, I still don't think I'm doing what I was really called to do, truly leveraging my gifts and talents. And it is at that point that I started my company, Incredible One Enterprises. We are a business transformation company today. We didn't start out that way. We made all the mistakes and did everything wrong, even to the point where I ended up having to file bankruptcy and go back to work full time, during which I went back to run a women's business center for a local nonprofit here in the state of Delaware. So when it comes to business, I have been there, done that, and gotten all the t-shirts, and really understands the highs and lows, the ebbs and the flows of what it takes to have a business that really does serve you both financially and spiritually, and really becomes a wealth center and legacy platform for yourself and for your family.
That's amazing. And you know what? It's amazing how many folks, how many business people, entrepreneurs have gone bankrupt or out of business before they had a success. We just recently had somebody on the show, Harris the Third, who speaks to business owners all the time and entrepreneurs, and he was telling a story how he had a group of several hundred entrepreneurs and business owners that were in this $2 to $5 million range, and they had a polling question. 80% of them said at some point they went bust and bankrupt and or either had to start from scratch. So that's a common thread, it seems like, with
Yeah.
entrepreneurs.
And I
Yeah,
think that the only place success comes before failure is I don't even know where, right? Everywhere I know, failure comes first, even in the dictionary, right? So
yeah,
I think it's par for the course. I think we have to, as entrepreneurs, we are ingenuitive people and we try lots of things and not everything sticks, right? And I think you also
agreed.
have to be willing to be innovative, to get uncomfortable. When I think about that first iteration of my business that flopped, I thought just me being me, as brilliant as I am, without properly marketing and selling out in the world was going to be enough to sustain my business. And it wasn't, right? And so I learned not so hard way, but I think it also made me as a business consultant today much more understanding of the journey for the entrepreneurs and the small business owners that we work with. We work with corporations and the government as well, but it helped me to understand what they're going through, which allows me in my consulting to be a lot more sympathetic of the plight and a lot more innovative in the strategies that are going to help them to get over the hump, across the plateau, and really position themselves to experience the growth that they know is possible. I think when we start our businesses, we are all starting from this place of recognizing our greatness and knowing that we could do something really amazing for ourselves and for the world at large. And sometimes we get sidetracked. And when
Hmm.
we do, if we can learn the lessons that accompany being sidetracked, we can get back on track and help other people avoid some of the mistakes we made during the process.
Agreed. So, you talked about in 2004 that you woke up and quit your job, right? Can you walk us through why, you alluded to it very quickly, glossed over it in the
Yeah.
overview of your life. Can you walk us through why you walked away from that corporate job? Because it seemed like it was a successful venture for you.
It was. I mean, I was 26 years old. I was making, a lot of money. I was making six figures. I was running my own department. I literally just woke up one day and just felt like there had to be more to life than sitting behind someone else's desk. Now, I'll be honest. Prior to that thought on December the 17th, 2004, yes, I remember the day, I had never once thought, oh, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I was the girl who always, as a child, I didn't play with Barbies. I didn't practice or rehearse my wedding. I had a briefcase and a Brooks Brothers suit, and I knew that I was going to be a businesswoman. I was going to be a boss calling the shots. I knew that. And so when I got into corporate America and this became my life, I started to question whether or not I could really be living up to my potential if someone else was determining what I got paid by the hour, by the year, what I did, what my title was. And I was at that point in my life where I was just really starting to see, like, if there was ever going to be a time that I was going to take the risk to see if I had what it took to be an entrepreneur, it was in my 20s before I was married and potentially with kids and a lot of responsibility. It was the point at which where I could afford to fail if it didn't work
Mhm.
out, right? I had an MBA. I got my MBA pretty much right after graduating from college. And I knew worst case scenario, I'd be able to get a job, right? When I woke up one day and I had depleted my savings account and there was no more money, I was marketable enough to be able to go get a job to become an executive director of a program in a women's nonprofit organization. So I knew that I could get a job if it didn't work, but I didn't know if I would always have the courage to take the step to see if entrepreneurship could be for me. I had read a couple of books around that time in my life, and it just really made me start to question. And I feel like when you get a question, it's like that thread on a sweater, you've got to pull on it. And I started to pull on the question, and it led to me walking in without a plan to quit my job. Now, listen, if you are out there and you are listening and you still have a job and you are thinking about entrepreneurship, do not just quit. Don't be like me. That's how I ended up filing bankruptcy. Create a transition plan. But I was young enough and courageous enough to try it because I knew if it didn't work, I could come back, I could bounce back, and I did. And I don't regret it. I think that it makes me so much better today because I was willing to bet on myself. And even when that first bet didn't work, I kept betting. I kept learning and developing and becoming what I needed to become in order to realize what I knew was possible. Because I believe that He doesn't give us dreams to taunt us. And the mere fact that it was a vision in my mind that this is something that I could do is because I could realize the vision. And more importantly, that the provision for that vision had already been established. And if I would be willing to walk into it and to do the work that would be required, I could realize the vision. And so I'm grateful, even though, yes, I walked away from $120,000 a year at 26 years old, where, I was making more money than my parents at that particular point in time.
Yeah. Who was the or was there a person in your life? Because you said from a very early age, you kind of knew you were destined to be in this direction. Was there somebody in your life that you got that confidence from and you saw and kind of learned from, or was it just from your own education, reading, etc.?
It was definitely more of the latter, but it was also really understanding my own birth story. So when I was in the 5th grade, I had a teacher named Mrs. Dixon, and I talk about Mrs. Dixon in my book, Move to Millions, which came out last year. And I tell the story about how she helped me, number one, find the meaning of my name. So Darnyelle means the secret place where dreamers go to dream. I don't believe it's an accident that today this is who I am. Right? So part of it was that, and part of it was just realizing that I came from a very chaotic upbringing. Both of my parents were drug addicts turned crack addicts. I was born in the projects, and we, as the saying goes, we didn't have the pot or the window, right? We didn't have either.
Right.
And so as a result of seeing where I came from, just very young, in my own creativity, I just made the decision that that was not going to be my life. That I was not going to be in the projects on food stamps with a whole bunch of babies. Like that just was not going to be my story. And I don't know where it came from, meaning that there was one person who led me down this path much. It was just internal. Like I just
Mhm.
knew I had an inner knower that was like, you're going to amount to something. You're going to be something amazing one day. And I just kept pursuing it. And so for me, that was education. So it was, being the teacher's pet and reading all of the books. To this day, I read a book a week. I believe that readers are leaders, and I'm always seeking knowledge because I want to be well versed on as much as I possibly can to fully support the people that I'm called to serve today. And between that and a lot of people in my life who saw my promise and my potential and that stewarded that promise and potential, Mrs. Dixon in the 5th grade, Mr. Cook, my guidance counselor from 9th through 12th grade, he made it possible for me to apply for tons of schools on stipends so I didn't have to pay application fees. And with my good SAT scores, I got into every single school I applied to. I ended up going to college on a full academic scholarship, all because of Mr. Cook, who saw my promise and my potential. And so I've just always been a person who believes the best. I don't operate in the sphere of lack that I came from. I just believe that the worst thing that could happen has already happened, but something
Right.
more amazing could happen. And I lean towards the amazing and allow it to really just guide me in everything that it is that I do.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. You know,
Yeah, absolutely.
one of the things that I talk about quite often is, as young people, especially athletes, I grew up being an athlete. My boys are athletes. We always embrace having a coach, right? You need
Mhm.
somebody to lead you, help you. But as adults, we have a tendency to shy away from that same kind of idea in terms of, sharpening our sword or, making ourselves better. Can you share? Because I believe there was a coach that was very transformational in your world. Can you share how that coach that you worked with transformed your path?
Absolutely. And there's been tons of coaches. As a person who offers executive coaching and business coaching, I would never be without a coach because it's like I don't believe in my own product, right? And
Right.
so I've always had someone guiding me because it's hard to read the label when you're inside the jar.
Hmm.
And I can't read my own label, right? I am the jar. And so it's been very, very important at every stage of development to have someone else who's gone further than I have to be able to see my gaps, to see my blind spots, and to be able to guide me down a path I think personal development is extremely important. I first became familiar with personal development in Mary Kay Cosmetics. When I was in corporate America, sure, we had people who led workshops and those types of things, but it didn't resonate as deeply as it did when I was in Mary Kay Cosmetics. And as a result of that, I've always sought out mentorship. And so I've had business coaches, I've had leadership coaches, I've worked with executive coaches, I've worked with tons of people who have made a difference. Probably out of all of them, the one that made the biggest difference in my life was the one who helped me really understand the full potential of what I could be. It was the very first coach that I hired.
Mhm.
And when I hired this particular coach, I will always be indebted to her. I was at a crossroad and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to be when I grow up, right? Fingers in the proverbial air quotes. And I was looking back over my life and my career, and I on my own, which is I think the value of coaching. Coaches tell you what you don't want to see and what you don't want to hear so that they can help you to become who God created you to be. I wasn't able to piece it together because again, it's hard to read the label when you're inside the jar. And this particular coach, very masterful, and I will tell you guys her name in a second, very masterful, helped me to connect the dots to find my greatness and to turn my greatness into a viable business opportunity. Because I was clear that I wanted to have my own business. And the first iteration of my business, as I've already shared with you, landed me in bankruptcy. I hired this coach and she really just pulled out of me what was already in me. Like she didn't make me something new. She just honed my potential and gave me permission to see myself differently and see myself in a different light. And LaFern Beatty is her name. And as a result of working with her, she changed the game for me. I'm so grateful to her because had it not been her honing my potential, not telling me what I should do, but instead guiding me through a process for me to unearth the answer for myself, it's led to the woman that I get to be today, the amazing organization that I run, the leader that I am, and all the things. And as a result of that very first experience in coaching when I couldn't afford it, did I mention that I was bankrupt? Couldn't afford it, but also could not afford it, right? Like it was so important for me to figure out how to get to the point where I could accomplish the big dreams that were on the inside of me that I made the sacrifice and probably avoided eating out. I mean, for 18 months I ate ramen noodles and peanut butter and jelly as dinner because that was all that I could afford because it was important that I look to my own personal development and get the support that I needed to go to my next level.
Imagine a relationship where financial conversations don't feel stressful, but actually bring you joy. We've designed a guide to help you have positive, meaningful money conversations with your partner. This isn't just another budgeting tool, it's a roadmap for building trust and connection. So if you're ready to start a joyful money journey with your partner, go to mitlin.us/couplesjoy and download your free guide. Transform your financial future together starting today. That resonates with me because coaches have been very important in my life
Yeah.
all throughout, right? Even non-business, sports, business. I've changed coaches over the years because I
Mhm.
think you gain, certain pieces of information and certain things from each and every one of them.
Absolutely.
And at different points of your life, you need different types of advice and guidance and different coaching. So it is a very, very powerful tool. And I love that this is an area that you're helping many other business folks and entrepreneurs with. Along those lines, I think speaking, right, going out and speaking is something that many people have as a goal, right? If I can create a talk and share it with the world and get paid for it or get compensated, that would be great. What advice do you have for those who want speaking to be something sustainable for them?
Yeah, I love this question. Speaking has always been my number one lead generator and sales tool. And I think it is amazing to be able to learn how to tell a powerful story, to connect with an audience, to get them to see what's possible for them. And so, anybody out there who is speaking, first and foremost, I'm going to say just do it. There's over 4,000 events that happen every single day in the United States. And so, there are places right now that are looking for speakers, right? And the other thing I think is going to be important for you is to learn how to hone your core message. Part of that starts with being able to tell your story. And I'm going to give you a quick framework that you can utilize to be able to do that. There's three distinct moments when you are unpacking for an audience why you are the expert of the hour and why they should listen to you and what's in it for them. The first moment is what I call the Robert Frost moment. If you think about his poem, A Road Less Traveled By, he says, two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the road less traveled, and that has made all the difference. And every single one of us has found ourselves at multiple times in life at the proverbial crossroads. There was a decision that you had to make at one point in time that led you down the path that now invites you to be the person standing on the stage telling your story. You want to break that down for your audience. The second moment is what I call the Sam Cooke moment. Sam Cooke was a balladeer from the 1960s and 70s, and he wrote a song called A Change Is Gonna Come. And when you think about that defining moment in your life, it should produce a change. That change is what ultimately leads you down the road to become whoever it is that you are at the moment that you're standing on that stage in front of your audience. So you want to unpack the big change that happened for you that made all the difference in your life. And then the final moment is the Harriet Tubman moment. This is the moment, if you know the story of Harriet Tubman, and Harriet Tubman was a slave who got herself to freedom. She got all the way to freedom and realized she didn't have enough of her family free with her. So she risked everything to go back into slavery to bring her family to freedom. Well, every single one of us has experienced some type of a breakthrough that has led us out of a cataclysmic challenge or problem that some might even describe as being synonymous to a version of slavery. Well, guess what? If you've been able to get to the other side and are now experiencing freedom in some way, telling others how you got to freedom and how you can bring them along with you could be a great way to start a conversation that could lead to a new client. So, learning how to tell your story is going to be important. And then the last thing that I'll share from a speaking perspective is the beautiful thing about operating in the marketplace today is that there are so many different ways to get yourself booked to speak. Right now, I mean, there are some who could argue that this is a speaking engagement, being on this a powerful podcast, talking to you, Lawrence, right? So every time you're given an opportunity to be able to share a message that is going to offer insights, inspiration, or evoke an emotional change that will allow people to show up differently, don't shy away from it.
Mhm.
Speaking is 86% of your ability to build a financial wealth center for your life is tied to your ability to speak well in public. So hone your skills, keep practicing, get out there and share because I promise you there is someone who can benefit from your story no matter what your story is. And you'll be amazed and surprised how many people will resonate and how that resonance will turn into an opportunity for you to do some really powerful work, helping them to shift in the area that you've become known for.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing those very actionable and easy to start implementing steps because I think people find those most helpful when they're kind of going through that thought process. So I think you gave them some very easy things to start thinking about and putting in motion right after they are done with this show. So thank you for that.
You're
You know,
welcome.
one of the things that you also talk about that I hear is, why booked and busy is often not a good thing. We always say, "Oh, how are things?" "Oh, great. I'm busy. Business is good." "Yeah, I'm busy. I'm booked." Why is that sometimes not really that great?
Yeah, I think as a society here in the United States, and I'm sure there are going to be people who are listening in other countries that might not share this same resonance with this particular thought. But here in the United States, we praise hard work and we celebrate working hard.
Right.
Right. Other cultures and other countries, they've gotten it together. They got it right. Right. I believe that, yes, you should work and it's important to work, but I don't think anything should sacrifice your self care, your time with family, because time is the one thing we can never get back. And I don't know about you, but I am not trying to be at the final stages of my life and I all I have to show for it is that I worked really really hard and I was really really busy. I want to be able to download some memories and some moments that happened outside of my office, right? And so I
Experiences.
believe that, yes, some experiences. I believe that it's important to do great work, but I also believe, as Stephen Covey says, it's important to set an end to your day, to determine when your work is going to end and when life is going to begin. I love the Brian Tracy of living in the eights: 8 hours to sleep, 8 hours to work, 8 hours to enjoy your life. I think it's important as entrepreneurs and small business owners that we adopt these philosophies from the beginning. So we have our proven framework and methodology that we use with our small business clients, the Move to Millions method. One of our pillars is self care, because self care is a business growth strategy. Your ability to recover and take downtime from your business is what gives you the ability to accelerate your results inside of your business. And so, booked and busy is not the goal. I want you to be booked. I want you to have work to do, but I also want you to have a life that you can enjoy. And there are some times when we are focused on being booked and busy that we take the wrong opportunities, which means that we're too busy for the right opportunities. And so it's going to be important that as you evaluate your priorities and look at what's going to ultimately get you to whatever the goals is that you've set and established for yourself, there is enough space to create capacity for those things to flow into your life and business. It's going to be challenging for them to come in if every moment of every day is filled with something that is often busy work that isn't really moving the needle and bringing you closer to the goals that you really have for yourself.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, joy is what it's all about, right? And hope
Absolutely.
and hopefully you're in a job, occupation, business, et cetera, that, it's bringing you joy to do that every day. Because as you've experienced in the past, sometimes you're not in that environment and it makes those 8 hours of work worse, right? It
Right.
doesn't even,
Absolutely.
if you're there and you can add those 8 hours and make them joyful 8 hours in addition to the 8 hours of joy that you're getting outside of the office, it's a huge win.
When you love what you do, it doesn't even feel like work, right?
Right,
Which is
right.
what it's all about. And even that, making sure that you're taking time away to recover and refresh is an important part of the process.
Yeah. Obviously you've made this transition from corporate world to being on your own and being an entrepreneur, if you will. How has working for yourself helped you find strengths that maybe you didn't know you had previously?
Yeah, I always say if you wanna know what you're made of, become an entrepreneur. I'm 17 years in business, 14 years successful in business. The first 3 years, which include the bankruptcy, I call those the lost years. And what marvels me as I look back over my life constantly, January, we just celebrated 14 years full time in the business. I'm just I'm awestruck and amazed at the gifts and talents that I knew I had and the ones that I didn't, that came rushing out when faced with an obstacle or a challenge on this journey to building the business. The ability to be resilient, the ability to be resourceful, the ability to be in a position to hire and pay other people. I mean, I've had payroll for the last 14 years and I've never missed it. That is amazing to me, and I'm so proud of myself and every entrepreneur, small business out there who's listening right now who can say some variation of the same. You should be so proud of yourself. Yes, there are highs and lows that accompany business ownership and being the boss and being the CEO. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. Some days it downright out, you know, torrential downpours
Yep.
some days. But then after the rain, we get to see the rainbow. And we get to realize that the work that we've become accustomed to doing, not only has it made our life, but it is helping us to help others make their lives. And
Hmm.
you can't help but smile and be grateful when you look back, no matter how many hard days you experience over the course of the year. I love that because I made the decision back at 26 years old to see if I had what it took to be an entrepreneur, that today at 49, which is crazy to me, I can recount more good days than I can recount bad days, and more lives changed than I think I ever would have changed if I kept being at a company that serviced and sold credit cards. Like like I'm actually doing work that changes lives, right? As opposed to just being a financial mechanism for people to get more things that they don't need, contributing to their debt. Like, it's just amazing what courage will give you permission to do, and so I'm just really, really grateful that that gets to be a part of my story today.
it's rewarding and stressful at the same time to have people that you rely on, right? Or rely on you, right? That for
Absolutely.
that work for you. But it's I think it's most days more rewarding than it is stressful, which is
Absolutely.
amazing. And congratulations on the 14-year milestone, because that's
Thank you.
quite an accomplishment.
It is. It is such an accomplishment. Thank you so much.
We just crossed 20 in 20 years in 2024. So
Nice.
similar. So
Congratulations.
yeah, it's a lot of fun. One of the things I've heard you talk about, and I'm sure this kind of goes back also maybe even to the bankruptcy or the lost years, as you referred it to. My household's a big fan of Shark Tank, and you hear Kevin O'Leary say it all the time. You got to know your numbers, right? And I believe that you talk about entrepreneurs needing to understand their numbers. And I think knowing them and understanding them are sometimes different, maybe the same too. Why do you think that's so important for entrepreneurs to understand their numbers?
Yeah. So, well, first and foremost, profit is how we keep score in business, right? Knowing your EBITDA is how we keep score in business, first and foremost. And if you don't have consistent revenue coming in, there's only so long your business is going to be able to survive, right? There are all of the experts out there who say you need to have at least 3 months worth of operating expenses in your business. We teach our clients they want to have 12 months. 3 months is okay, but I really wanna help our clients get to the point where they don't have to worry and stress over being able to make any decision to move their business forward that is a financial one because they don't understand, and that only happens when you know your numbers, when you understand your client acquisition costs, when you understand your monthly burn rate, when you and these are just a few examples of the numbers, right? When they don't understand their net promoter score and how many of the clients that they are interfacing with actually are going to continue to work with them because it is way cheaper to get a client to renew than to have to go find a new client every single time. If you don't understand what we call the key performance indicators of your business, there are financial KPIs, there are marketing KPIs, sales KPIs, there are legal KPIs, there are operational KPIs, there are client KPIs, and there are talent team KPIs. If you don't understand which ones govern your business, then your business's viability is in question. And it's going to be really challenging for you to get the support that you need. And if you ever find yourself needing access to capital and you don't know these numbers, if you don't know how to read your profit and loss statement, if you don't know how to understand what it says so that you can catch the errors that are sometimes made by your financial management team. Like, I've got a CPA, a CFO, a bookkeeper, I got all of these people. And when my financial statements come in by the 5th to the 8th of the month, I take my time and I look at every single one of them. And sometimes I find discrepancies, things that are misappropriated, things that are wrong. Like, because I know my business, I know my numbers. I look at my bank accounts every single day, Lawrence. Every day. I'm looking at the money that comes in. I pay attention to the deposits as much as I pay attention to the withdrawals. We've got a process for expense management in our company because I want to always make sure that we have more than enough cash than we need at any particular point in time so that I never have to worry about, am I going to make payroll? And I never have to worry about, do I need to make an investment to move my business forward? Do I have the resources available to it? And that would not be available to me if I didn't have strong business acumen and I didn't have a relationship with money and the numbers to help to support me. Most entrepreneurs and small business owners are amazing at what it is that they do. When it comes to their craft and their skill, they are the best thing since pockets. But what we find is often most do not have successful business acumen, which ties in directly to the statistics that govern small business, right? If we look at what the IRS and the SBA has to say about small business, we know just right off the top of my head that approximately 89.19% of non-employer entities, which is the largest bucket of small businesses in the country, those are
Hmm.
the ones without employees, they don't even gross receipt $100,000 a year.
Hmm.
Well, that is small business poverty if I ever heard of it. And I don't know anybody who started a business to barely make ends meet. And a lot of that happens because we're afraid of the numbers. We don't know what the numbers mean. We don't know what the numbers tell us and how to govern strategy or pivot strategy based on what we learn about the numbers. Business is very black and white, it's very plus sign or negative sign. And when you understand that, you can learn how to make and move decisions that bring the business forward. It changes everything if you understand that. And so, I mean, I will go so far as to say you have no business being in business if you don't pay attention to your numbers.
Yeah. So I'm hearing know your numbers, and if you don't know them, find somebody who could teach you, or find a book that can help you do that. So
Absolutely.
at the core of what you do is, which you mentioned earlier, is the move to millions method, right?
Mhm.
Can you share how this sets you apart and helps CEOs succeed?
Yeah, absolutely. So, for our small business clients, which makes up about 70% of the work that we do every single day, we work with businesses that are caught somewhere between two and $400,000 a year, but they desire to have businesses that generate seven figures or more every single year. And so, what we find is that for that particular population, there are seven pillars that we can support them around to help them develop the business acumen and set up the operational infrastructure that will serve and support them to actually be able to scale and sustain their businesses. Now, scaling is a word that is often misunderstood and overused in small business. Scaling means multiplying, replicating, and duplicating. Most businesses don't have something that they can multiply, duplicate, or replicate because they've oopsed their way into whatever revenue that they're getting. So, through our methodology, the pillars are strategy, sales, systems, support, success mindset, spiritual principles, and self care. Spirituality is something that we hold very, very near in our work with our clients. And between these seven pillars, we really are helping our clients set up the systems and infrastructure that's going to allow them to have a winning strategy that works for the clients that they want to serve, insert into their business a leveraged sales system so that they can close more than one client at a time, and they don't have to worry on one by one clients to come into their business. That allows them to have the right standard operating and standard automating automation procedures, and to build out a lean team that understands the core areas of their business and can help them to move the needle, while also indoctrinating practices like mindfulness and success mindset and regulation of their nervous system into their work every single day. Processes like understanding the significance of having the right confidence and leveraging forgiveness and taking time away from their work as much as they spend in the work. And what we have found is through implementing this system and really formalizing it over just we've had the framework for about 12 years. We renamed it about 4 years ago, the Move to Millions method. And since we renamed it and really we went all in on supporting businesses to get to seven figures, we've helped 76 clients experience their first or next seven figure year through this methodology. And so what makes us different is I don't know a lot of people who can say for that particular corridor of businesses that are doing two to $400,000 a year, being able to get them to seven figures in on average about 18 months.
Amazing.
We've been able to do that time and time and time again. And so, for our small business work, that's the segment where we really spend our energy. And I love this pocket of businesses because you've proven concept. You know what it is that you're doing and who you serve. You just need some support around your packaging, your pricing, and your operational infrastructure to be able to create enough volume to be able to scale up to and sustain your business to seven figures. And I'm also really proud to say, of those 76 businesses that we've supported, we've watched 98% of them sustain their seven figure business over time. So it's a methodology that is proven to work and continues to work. And what I also love is that it doesn't matter what kind of business you have, these pillars will support you and getting your business to where you want to be. And that's what I wrote all about in my book, Move to Millions, the proven framework to become $1 million CEO with grace and ease instead of hustle and grind.
There you go. So much value creation there, and thank you for sharing those seven pillars. So vitally important to a business. In addition to knowing your numbers,
Thank you.
so important. So Darnyelle, we talked a little bit about joy so far, and we're all about joy on the Mitlin Money Mindset. And we ask each of our guests the same last question, and that is, what did you do today that brought you joy and put you in the right mindset for success?
Oh, I love this question. There's probably been 3 things I've done today that has done that. Number 1, getting up in the morning and setting a very clear intention for my day and spending time in gratitude. I believe that that which we are grateful for, we invite God to bring us more of. So that was number one. Number two, coming into my office and having a meeting with my team. And as a part of that, starting each meeting with everyone telling us something that they're grateful for and something that they're excited about. And then the third, up until this point, is having this conversation with you. I've enjoyed just having you ask me these questions. I think sometimes, when you know who you are and you know what you do, you just go through the day doing what you do. But when you have someone like yourself who makes you stop and reflect and think about moments like the coach that changed my life, which
Right.
brought me some joy just remembering LaFern, right? Like, it's so easy in the day to day as a CEO of a company. You get in there, you get in the office, and there's immediately a fire that needs to be put out. And before you know it, you've had your fire hose out all day and you haven't taken any time to do any mindfulness practice and just to ground yourself in the fact that you are an entrepreneur, a small business owner who has a business that is solving problems for other people. So these three things, amongst other things, have really helped me today just to feel really, really grateful and excited to have had this amazing conversation with you, excited for everyone who's going to have the opportunity to hear this amazing conversation and take little nuggets that they are going to be able to indoctrinate into their practice every single day that are going to help them to find even more joy.
Yeah, so many great nuggets here, Darnyelle. Thank you for sharing them with us. And, if people want to learn more about you, connect with you, learn more about the work that you're doing, we're going to have all your information in the show notes. But what's the easiest and the best place for them to do that?
Yeah, if they go to movetomillions.com, you'll see everything you want to know about me and so much more is there waiting for you.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate your time today, Darnyelle, and I appreciate you sharing all these great nuggets and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
I want to thank Dr. Darnyelle Jervey Harmon for being a guest on the Mitlin Money Mindset. Darnyelle is a powerhouse both with her individual coaching clients and at live events. She helps businesses get out of their own way and scale like they dreamed. Whether it's one on one or at a live event or simply reading one of Darnyelle's best selling books or listening to her podcast, there is so much value for entrepreneurs to derive from her knowledge. Dr. Darnyelle Jervey Harmon and Incredible One Enterprises can be found across most social media platforms. All the contact information needed to find them can be found in the show notes.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Mitlin Money Mindset. Remember, it's not just about the money, it's finding joy in the journey and embracing the right mindset. If you love the show, be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Don't forget to follow along for more tips and inspiration. Please visit the social links below to connect with Larry or his guests. Until next time, keep smiling, keep thriving, and remember to think about, what did you do today that brought you joy?
The opinions voiced in the Mitlin Money Mindset Show with Lawrence Sprung are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Investing involves risk, including possible loss of principal. No strategy ensures success or protects against loss. To determine what may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, financial or tax advisor prior to investing. Investment advisory services offered through CWM LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor. Guests on the Mitlin Money Mindset Show are not affiliated with CWM LLC.